All right, so after multiplying those out, yes, you should have x squared minus 2x minus 15. So what my note down there is saying, the first term of your trinomial, which would in this case would be our x squared, is when we multiplied those first two terms there. You multiplied your x times your x, that's how we got our x squared. Our last term, which in this case is the negative 15, was because you multiplied the last two terms of your parentheses together. Your 3 times your negative 5 gives you your negative 15. The tricky part is your middle term, our negative 2x. That was created by combining two things together. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to start with the trinomial, and we have to work backwards to figure out what the factors are. So when we do that, we want to look at your first term. How do we break that apart? What multiplies to give us that first term? And then you look at your last term. What multiplies to give you that last term? And then your middle term, this is the one that we use to do our check, because a lot of times you have more than one set of factors that you can choose from. The middle term is what helps you decide which ones you're going to actually go with. So another thing we're going to have to pay attention to is you have to determine what signs you're going to use when you're factoring these. So with your trinomials, you can have two plus signs, a minus and a plus and a minus, and then two minus signs. So when you're trying to figure out what your signs are, you actually always want to look at your second sign first. So you're always going to look at that second sign first. So if that second sign is a plus sign, that means when you're factoring, your signs are going to be the same. So if this is plus and then the first term is plus, when you factor, both of your factors are going to have plus signs in there. So you'd have something like x plus 3 and x plus 5, depending on what your numbers are. If this is positive, again, this is the same, but if you look and this one's negative, that means both of your signs will be negative when you factor. So that last term is plus, your signs are the same. The first one tells you which ones they're going to be. Now if you look and then this is minus, that means your signs are going to be different, and it does not matter which one comes first. The first sign doesn't matter at all. You're just going to have one plus, one minus, and you just got to figure out where they're going to go. It's kind of a little trial and error stuff here. So when we're factoring our trinomials, we got our directions down there. You're going to first set up two sets of parentheses. With our GCF, we only had one set of parentheses, but with our trinomials, we're always going to have two sets of parentheses. You're going to determine your signs, whether they're going to be the same or different. And then you're going to figure out what multiplies to give you the first term, what multiplies to give you the last term. And again, you use your middle term to check. So let's try some examples. So let's take a look at our back page. So example 1, we have a trinomial. So first thing I do is I set up my two sets of parentheses. I then look at my sign here. Because that is a plus sign, that means when I factor, my signs are going to be the same. So I look to the one before it. This means they're both going to be plus. So I put my signs in there. So now we look to our first term. What multiplies to give us x squared? X times x. So, because it's the first term of my trinomial, my x's are the first terms in my parentheses. So now we have to look to see what multiplies to give us 12. Well, our factors of 12 would be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Those are our options for what multiplies to give us 12. We want a 7 in the middle. So which of those three options gives us a 7 by adding? 3 times 4. So that's how we know we're going to use 3 and 4. Because again, if you remember our first problem at the beginning, you multiplied to give you your first term, multiplied to give you the last term, and then you added things together to give you that middle term. You had a -5 and a 3. You added together to give you your -2. So now when we check, you don't have to multiply the whole thing out. We check by using what we call little smile, big smile. And all you're checking is that middle term, because I know x times x is x squared. I know 3 times 4 is 12. I just got to make sure we got that 7 in the middle. So our little smile means I multiply these two terms together, the ones right next to each other. It makes a little smile. So 3 times x gives us 3x. Multiply my big smile, which would be my two outside terms, so x times 4. When I add those together, there's our 7x, so that's our check. All right, let's try the second one. I have a trinomial, so I'm going to set up 2 sets of parentheses. Our last sign there is a positive, so does that mean our signs are going to be the same or different when we factor? Yep, this means same. This means they're both negatives. I'm going to put my minus signs in there. So then we look at our first term, our x squared. What multiplies to give us x squared? X times x. So down here I'm going to make my list. All of our factors of 42. There's a lot of them. We got 1 times 42. 2 times 21. Does 3 go into it? 3 times what? Does 4 go into it? No. Does 5? Come on, 5 is the easiest. It's got to end in 0 or 5 for 5 to go into it. How about 6? Yes, because 2 and 3 go into it, 6 goes into it. 6 times what?
7.
And then
7 times 6.
We just repeated ourselves because our next one would be 7 times 6. So we're looking for which one of those would give us a 17 in the middle. The 3 and the 14. So that's why we pick those ones. So again, we would check ourselves using little smile, big smile. So my little smile, -3 times x, gives me a -3x. Big smile, x times -14 is -14x. So if I add those together, -3 plus -14, there's our -17, which was our middle term, so it checks out. All right, so number 3, I'm going to put my 2 sets of parentheses to start with. This time, though, we got a negative as our second sign, so that means our signs are going to be different. And then what multiplies to give us g squared? G times g. So I'm going to have, bless you, one of them is g plus, and the other one is g minus. Because my signs have to be different since it's a negative at the end. So now we have to figure out what multiplies to give us 27. 9 times 3, 1 times 27. Which one thing's going to give you a 6 in the middle? Yep, the 9 and the 3. These are the ones where you definitely want to make sure you do your check. So my little smile, 9 times g, gives me a 9g, and it's positive because my 9 is positive. Big smile would give us a -3g. So 9 minus 3 gives us our +6, so it checks out. And so again, your answers are the 2 sets of parentheses, not your check. Some people try to tell me their check is the answer. That's not the answer. It's the 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, let's try number 4. So I set up my two sets of parentheses there. Yeah, what are our signs going to be? Both negative. And then to get us our x squared, so it would be x minus and x minus. What multiplies to give us 15? Yeah, we got 1 and 15, and then 3 times 5. Are either of those going to give us a 9? No, this one would give us a 16. This one would give us an 8. None of them would give us a 9. So this is what we call a prime. It's not factorable.
Oh, because it's like prime is a positive number.
Mm-hmm. So prime is what we call ones that are not factorable. All right, let's try number 5. What will our signs be, same or different? Different. What multiplies to give us y squared? So I got a y minus and a y plus. Again, it does not matter which order you put them in. So we got to figure out what multiplies to give us 95. Let's start our little list.
5.
I got 1 times 95. Does 2 go into it? No, because it's not even. Does 3 go into it? No. 4 does not go into it. 5 does. 5 times what?
19.
And 6 doesn't. 7 doesn't. 8 doesn't. I think we got it. So if I want a negative 14 in the middle, which one do you think should be my negative? The 19. I heard somebody say it. So then when we do our check, little smile would be negative 19y. My big smile would be positive 5y. So when I add those, we do get our negative 14y. So now keep in mind, as I said, it doesn't matter which order you write those in. The only thing that matters is that the signs are the same. So you could have it written as y plus 5 times y minus 14, and that's still the same answer I have. All you did was just change your order around. So as long as the 5 is still positive and the 14 is still negative, 19, you're good to go. Does not matter which one's written first. All right, let's try number 6. So our signs, are they going to be same or different? Different. And then what multiplies to give us a squared? 3 times a. So I put a plus a minus. So now we got to figure out what multiplies to give us 210. So we got 1 times 210. We got 2 times 105. 3 times 70. Does 4 go into it? No. 5 times 42. 6 times what? 35. Does 7 go into it? Yes. 7 times what? Does 8 go into it? No, 8 doesn't. Does 9 go into it? Then times 21. Does 11 go into it? Use calculators. You guys got these awesome devices called calculators to help us out. 210 divided by 11. Does it work? No? How about 12? No. 13? 14? 14 times what? We want to get a 1 in the middle. Which of our ones will let us get a 1 in the middle? 14 and the 15, because they're only one number apart. Which one should be my negative? 15. And then the 14 goes there. Again, if you can't look at it right away and be able to tell which one should be your negative, do your check. Little smile, 14a. Big smile, negative 15a. There's your negative 1a, which is what our middle term is. So now 7 is a little bit different because instead of it being w squared at the beginning, it's w to the 4th. But our steps are all going to be the same. So our signs are going to be what? Same or different? Different. Before, we would take x squared and we would break it apart into x to the 1st and x to the 1st. If you have w to the 4th, we break it up into w squared and w squared. You just take your exponent, divide it by 2. So then what multiplies to give us 54? 9 and 6, and those are 3 apart. Which one should be my positive? 9. And then your 6 is negative. Again, if you can't see that right away, always do your checks. That would be 9w squared minus 6w squared. There's your 3w squared. And then our last part down here, we have a rectangle with dimensions that are binomial factors of this. Represent the perimeter of the rectangle. So first thing I'm going to do is draw a rectangle because it's talking about a rectangle, so I'm sure at some point or another I'm going to need that picture. They tell me the length and width are binomial factors of that trinomial. So what that means is you need to factor it, just like we've been doing. So we got a negative 18 at the end. So our signs are going to be what? Different. So you got one that's plus, one that's minus. We got an x plus and an x minus. So we're looking for what multiplies to give us 18. 6 and 3. Which one's going to be my negative? 6 and then 3. Again, if you need to, do your little big smile check. So that'd be 3x minus 6x gives us a negative 3, which is our middle term. So we did that right. So then I'm going to label my rectangle. 1 is my length. 1 is my width. It does not matter which one you label as which. So now we got to represent the perimeter. We did half of it. We found what they were. So now we can find the perimeter. Again, one way. You can use the perimeter formula, 2 length plus 2 width. So that'd be 2 times x plus 3 plus 2 times x minus 6. Other way would just be to line all 4 of them up and add them up that way. So that's 2x plus 6 plus 2x minus 12. So 4x minus 6 would be our perimeter, and that is our final answer.